Good afternoon, everyone. My clock shows 1 o'clock, so I'll go ahead and get started with today's webinar. My name is Jeremy Malarski. I'm a senior project coordinator here at the University of Missouri Center for Health Policy. I'm here in the capacity of representing the Missouri Family Community Trust for this project called No Kid Hungry Missouri. And we are offering grants currently for certain entities that are interested in feeding Missouri children free meals during the summer, which is a very important cause, as I'll get into in a moment. With me today is Kimberly Springer of our center. She's going to be helping with the chat. As we move forward, if you have questions, please go ahead and utilize this medium. Meaning, we're I think we're on mute by default, but if you kind of raise your hand or message Kimberly, we can get your question answered. We expect this to be a discussion, and I'm sure that many of you have questions, particularly those who are unfamiliar with our program. I'll go ahead and start with who we are and why we are doing this. Simon Says, not Simon Says it's in the game, but Simon Sinek, the TED Talk speaker, says that we should begin with why. So I like to do that with most of my presentations. But first, who? Again, I'm employed by the entity on the right, the Center for Health Policy at the University of Missouri. We're under the College of Health Sciences, and we assist the entity on the left, the Missouri Family Community Trust, with a number of initiatives, most relevant this project, the No Kid Hungry Missouri project. The Family Community Trust is a network of actually a little more now than 20 respected community partnerships around the state. My kind of informal fact story is that they go all the way back to the 90s when the trend in federal government was to decentralize and federal government and pass some of the functions and services down to the nonprofit sector. So the community partnerships in our state perform a lot of public services, but they do so at the community level and often with diverse forms of funding. And they also kind of choose what the services they provide based on the needs in their community. So many of them, for example, participate in Meals on Wheels for seniors. The community partnership in the Hannibal area that I'm familiar with, one year they were reclaiming small kitchen appliances and giving those away to needy families who needed them. So they wear many different hats, and they are about public-private partnerships. And you can find out more about the different community partnerships around the state and their central sort of representative organization, the Family Community Trust. That's based in Jeff City. You can find out more about them at the website mofact.org. And they are the No Kid Hungry project leader. They actually give out the grants. We are the Center for Health Policy. Kimberly and I are employed by the Center for Health Policy. We have also been funded to assist with this work. We help evaluate the grant applications. That's going to be most relevant to what I'm about to talk about. And we evaluate this project from an academic and research-based posture. That means we bring sort of a data-based lens to this project. We help steer the money toward places that not only do we think are needy, but also we learn from data indicators that are needy, and help get the funding passed down that way. You may ask, where does the funding come from? That's a very good question. The dollars that are used for this grant program, which has been in operation since roughly school year 2016-2017, come from community service block grants from the federal government. And they are passed down through the Department of Social Services. They are a third partner in this work. The Missouri Department of Social Services awards or contracts to MoFact and to CHP to operate the No Kid Hungry Missouri program. If you see commercials, and they do sometimes appear from time to time on the Food Network for No Kid Hungry, period. That is a national project run by a nonprofit called Share Our Strength. And we borrow our project model from them, and we do get support and partner with them. But it's important to note that the money for this grant comes from the federal government and the state. It's a state appropriation. The MOLEG has decided and continues to decide every year that this is money that is worth spending for a number of reasons, some of which I'm going to cover in when I talk about the purpose of this project and why we do things the way we do. So that's who we are. Any questions at this point? Okay, that's a Firefly chat. All right. Again, chat's open, and Kimberly will be watching that. I won't be able to because I'm going to be concentrating on the presentation, if you don't mind. All right, so why do we do this? Child hunger remains an acute problem in the state of Missouri, and I like to show this slide because this is neither a city mouse nor a country mouse problem exclusively. It is spread throughout the state. And we have counties, and these aren't counties, these are actually school districts that have relatively high percentages of child food insecurity as measured every year by Feeding America, and also high free and reduced lunch participation rates. So it's actually it's the equivalent of almost half the students at this time, and that number fluctuates year to year, but it's more than 500,000 students, and that's only the ones that we know about that fill out the free and reduced form. So it's an acute problem. It is all over the state, and it is not exclusive to urban, rural, or settings in between those two categories. So we see this as a statewide project, and it is operated as a statewide project since school year 2016-2017. No one wins when children are hungry. Child food insecurity has been correlated with things like disciplinary problems, concentration. On the flip side, participation in school meal programs has been positively correlated with those things. In 2013, Tyson Foods, for example, did a study of participation in school breakfast and found positive correlations between participation in school breakfast, attendance, and performance on standardized math tests, something that this state could use a little help on. So there's nothing good that comes from students being hungry, and there are students who have trouble, comparatively speaking, on the economic scale in our state, and they're all over the place. Project model is fairly straightforward compared to, at least in my personal experience with a lot of government programs. Share Our Strength invented this approach. It concentrates on 3 different areas of nutrition as they are focused through school meals. And all of these school meal programs are overseen and partially funded by the United States Department of Agriculture. So we work on school breakfast, after school meals, and summer meals. We're going to mostly talk about summer meals today, but throughout the year, we occasionally will offer funding in the other 2 categories as well. The second category, I'll just take a moment and say the second category for after school meals and snacks has been an area that Missouri in particular has taken advantage of since this project started. Obviously, correlation isn't causality, but there has been a big correlation between participation in the USDA operated after school meal programs, which are very important because, there's not necessarily a guaranteed meal for a lot of these kiddos in the afternoon hours after they get home from school. And there's a dearth in after school meal activities, and after school activities, we're finding out more and more are much more valuable than, say, doom scrolling or, some of the social media applications out there. After school meals are very important, and Missouri has taken advantage of that in terms of an increase in participation, a dramatic increase in participation since this project started way back in 2016, 2017. We help fund those initiatives with these grants. But mostly today we are here about summer meals, and that is what the current open grant is for. It's to fund meals during the summer. This project is very concerned with, if you haven't kind of gathered this already, with the time that students and young people generally are not not necessarily, or not traditionally, I should say, in an institutional setting where meals are provided. So most people, if you just chat with people in a public setting, most people are very much aware of school lunches. School lunches have been around since the World War II era. Not as many people are aware of the fact that we have a USDA program for school breakfast, and even fewer are aware of the fact that we have a USDA program to provide after school meals in many places. And we have USDA programs to provide summer meals, not just during summer school, but also during the time of year when summer school is not typically in operation in July and August. And this project model, again, is very much concerned with incentivizing free meals during those times when they're not traditionally have not traditionally been provided. So that's why I want to, if you've read the grant application already, and I'll send the link to the grant application in the chat, you'll notice that one of the rules is that we want you to be serving sometime in July or August. That is why, is because most summer schools are open in June. And so we want to see people open at least part of the time in July or August. So let's talk more about summer meals and snacks and how we've done this. This is not a program that has really favored one area over the other. Most of these areas in white are white because in part because of eligibility. So most schools can serve SSO. I don't know that most schools can serve SSO in July and August and have them be open sites. Certainly SFSP rules, that's the Summer Food Service Program rules, require some kind of eligibility test based on the area. After school meals, the program that we support, requires some kind of eligibility test based on need. So there are areas, particularly in the north part of the state, where you could get one of our grants by serving school breakfast and having a good plan to increase participation in school breakfast, because that's universal. But some of these USDA programs that we're talking about are not universal and based on need. Importantly, these programs that we're talking, the two programs that we're talking about here at the bottom here, after school meals and snacks and summer meals and snacks, for the stuff that we incentivize, for the most part, with the exception of seamless summer option, for what I've been calling SFSP, and the federal government recently renamed Sun Meals. That, by the way, that's another little caveat. You'll see it mentioned as Sun Meals in some places now, and Summer Food Service Program in other places. Those are synonymous for the intents and purposes of this webinar, and the intents and purposes of this grant. But the point I want to get to is that whether you're eligible to serve under one of those USDA programs is very much a function, at least in part, very much a function of where you are serving the meals. So in school lunch land, in a traditional school lunch setup, whether a student is eligible for free or reduced meals is typically a function of their individual, what we call individual eligibility. So if you're in a school nutrition department, you know this, you're often in the position of asking students to take home forms, having the parents fill out the form, sometimes asking what the family annual income is. And if you're serving Sun Meals / SFSP, that is not an issue, because whether you're eligible depends on where you're serving. specifically the State Department that oversees Sun Meals and FSSP, the Department of Health and Senior Services, which may even have a representative on the call today. The Health and Senior Services Department, they look at where you're serving, and they want to make sure that you are serving in an area that falls into the attendance zone of a school with 50% or higher free and reduced enrollment. That's the attendance zone of a school. It's free and reduced by 50% or higher, and that could be any education level. It could be the elementary school, the middle school, or the high school. Typically, it's the elementary school, but that varies sometimes. It is worth, if you're curious about SFSP at this point, and the clock's ticking for you, but if you're curious about serving SFSP, maybe you run a nonprofit and you have some flexibility about where your site's going to be, and you don't know about your eligibility, we encourage you to contact the Department of Health and Senior Services. They are experts at figuring out exactly where is eligible and where is not. But my point for bringing that up is these programs that we grant to incentivize participation in, rather, they run on area eligibility in most cases, which hopefully decreases that possible shame and stigma or even administrative burden that you get in an individual eligibility system. Not that there's not a time and place for an individual eligibility system or that we have an opinion on that, but we feel through this project model that that incentivizing an area eligibility model tends to remove some of that stigma. Not, in other words, not every kid is going to raise their hand and say they're hungry. Not every kid is going to want to, in any way, be flagged as poor or needy. In an area eligibility system, it's the site that makes it eligible, and therefore you can do things like just advertise free meals for all kids, full stop, period. And so again, a classic summer food service program site in our state and other states will do that. Will make sure they're in an area that's eligible by checking with their state agency, offer activities, of course, and advertise the service as free meals for kids, kind of minimizing the messaging about government program or USDA or anything like that, just free meals for kids, period. And that has been, in my opinion, effective in terms of the marketing end, and is allowed. Again, that's the beauty of an area eligibility system. Okay, not seeing any questions in the chat. So, and to be clear, this project is operated by two non-government agencies: MoFac, the Missouri Family and Community Trust, which actually makes the decisions and provides the grant money, and the CHP, the Center for Health Policy. We are not the state, so we just incentivize people who are participating in a program that is ultimately a federal program that is operated by the state. So if you have questions about, well, is my site eligible and how do I file claims? Because all of these programs, you get reimbursed by the state for serving meals. That's how this is economically manageable. If you're a participant in Sun Meals or SFSP, you are registered with the state as a SFSP site. I'm going to keep saying SFSP because I'm used to it. You register with the state as either a SFSP sponsor or an FSSP site. Your sponsor agency files paperwork typically twice a month. I think it might even be 3 times a month now, I believe, through an online portal. You'll say, among other things, you'll have your registration list, but you'll also say how many meals you're serving, how many meals and snacks you're serving, and then that will determine how much payment you get. So that's how this is economically sustainable in many cases. I think for a full 5-component meal, it's up to almost $4.50, maybe even $5 now. and snacks are probably well north of $1. Uh, and if you serve enough of those, just again, just thinking like a business person, that can cover a lot, if not most of your costs, hopefully. Um, and that's again one of the assumptions behind Share Our Strengths project model is we're providing mini grants. I haven't gotten into this yet, but we're providing mini grants for up to $5,000 in a classic scenario that gets people started on either a new site or a plan to increase participation at their existing site, and that serves as seed money, but the ongoing revenue comes from DHSS, the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, and ultimately USDA, and it's a flat payment that usually increases every year, depending upon the meal type that you're serving, and hopefully leads to a sustainable long-term um, tactic toward reducing or even eliminating child hunger in the state. We have a question in the chat. I need to put on my readers, excuse me. We run CEP and CASCFP during school year. We run SFSP and during the weekend program, summer school. Is there a snack program in the summer that would be appropriate for our district? The answer to that question, Sarah, is it's my understanding under SFSP that you can serve snacks or suppers under SFSP. That's been the case for many years. So when I say suppers, I mean the full meals. Those are the 5-component meals, and hopefully I don't flake on this, but it's milk, meat or meat alternate, grain, fruit, vegetable. Snack is at least is a 2-component meal, I believe, with at least 1 fruit and vegetable, and then the second component I think can be grain or meat alternate. But there's people who know way more about that than me. The program itself is flexible, and you can serve full meals or snacks. Also, the Sun Meal / SFSP allows you to serve breakfast at basically basically up to 2 meals a day under SFSP, and they can be during different times of the day. And when you file your claims with and your plan with Department of Health and Senior Services, that's when you'll identify when your service is. Most summer camps are not, they might be 5 or 6 hours. So it typically has the typical scenario is a meal and a snack from what I gather, but it varies throughout the state. I don't believe if this is the question, I don't believe you can serve both SFSP and CACFP at the same time, but that again is a question for our partners at Health and Senior Services. Good question. All right, we grant all over the place, and we try to be geographically diverse in our selection and our in our role, in our recommendation to MoFact in terms of who's funded. I'll get into this in a second, but just to touch on it, we try to keep the grant application very simple. You're going to find, if you apply, you're going to find it's like a 3 or 4 page web form, and the questions are mostly who you are and how you plan to use the money, like what your purchase plan is. And we evaluate mostly based on 3 things. Number 1, how vulnerable is your neighborhood? How much poverty is there? How much poverty is in your community? How needy is the community? 2, how sustainable is the plan? How likely is it to actually increase participation and be long term? How sustainable is the purchase? We don't actually outlaw any kind of purchase other than food. So please don't on your purchase plan, and I'll get into this in a second, don't ask to buy food. That's not a sustainable purchase. Most of our grant money has in the past gone toward kitchen equipment. That tends to have gotten awarded the most because it has a lasting effect. We will entertain and consider other requests, but most of the funding does go toward nutrition related equipment like kitchen equipment, storage equipment, carts, um, refrigerators, steam tables. We bought some picnic tables in the past. There's examples at the top of the application and in the funding opportunity announcement on MoFac's website. We look at how sustainable your plan is, and we also try to prioritize entities that we haven't funded in the past, that haven't been participating, are likely to be around, stick around. Yeah, that's mostly how we evaluate them. But as the map shows, we try to be geographically diverse in our grant making. This kind of covers what I just said. Because we are a health policy center at a university, we are able to kind of bring some wisdom from the data that we collect to that first bullet point. So Kimberly and I, we look at the area that you're serving, things like child poverty, things like housing cost burden, things like food insecurity measured by surveys. The first two things I mentioned are measured by the census. We look at things like child welfare, dropout rates, everything. If you're familiar with the Missouri Kids Count Project, we use the Kids Count Project data book to look at your community. And if we have two applications that pound for pound are equal, and one community is needier than the other, then we will typically recommend the needier community. Yep. So the last bullet point, I don't want anybody to look at the last bullet point. If you've won a grant from us in the past, that does not mean you're disqualified. You are qualified. But again, if it gets competitive, and summer tends to be competitive, as opposed to after school, certainly. And school breakfast isn't as competitive because school breakfast is only open to school. Summer is the one that more people are familiar with, and it's open to many nonprofits and many schools, depending upon where you are. So it tends to be pretty competitive. Unless it's competitive with another organization that has pound for pound of just about whatever you consider an equal application, we're not going to disqualify you for having won before, but we do have a responsibility. This is federal money passing through the state, and we try not to play favorites. So there may be a situation, it has been a handful of times in the past, where we have had to turn down an organization that has won many grants from us in the past. But that's on the slide to show you that is something that we look at. It is not a disqualifier. This is what the funding proposal looks like. There are up to 7 line items on the form online. Some of you have complicated plans that require more than 7 line items. That is okay. You'll find that elsewhere in the application, Kimberly and my email addresses are both listed. You could just say on this form more than 7 items, and then write an email to Kimberly and I. And typically, what's happened is you send us an Excel sheet, and we'll add those items to our evaluation. You want to make sure this doesn't exceed a total of $5,000. If it does, that won't disqualify you, but we may come back to you and say we can only award, because we can only award $5,000, and the rest of the items you'll have to fund through some other funding source. So yeah, just some things to keep in mind. The unit cost is how much for each item. We want a description. Typically, if you're buying off a place like Web Restaurant or something, they'll have that on that site. And you can kind of copy paste. That's okay. We do want a reasonably detailed description. If you're considering the purchase and haven't made it yet, I realize that can be tricky. Just do the best you can. And we do want to make sure that one mistake we've seen before is that number in that third column, that is the unit cost, not the total cost for the line item. So the total cost for the line item is going to be the number in the third column multiplied by the number in the fourth column, not the total. And then the total for the whole spreadsheet, we will figure out on our side. But it doesn't kill you to do it on your own with a calculator or an Excel spreadsheet yourself if you want to do that. I'm sure many of you do. Okay.
One other thing that we might mention that commonly occurs is occasionally someone will ask for an item that is in excess of $5,000. And again, that is not disqualified. That does not disqualify you. But we would like for you to explain the purchase plan for the balance of the item. As Jeremy mentioned, $5,000 is the maximum amount. And so if costs exceed, please do tell us how the other portion of that is going to be funded.
It's a good point, Kimberly. One more question in the chat. Quote, do you have documentation on how what meal snack means or what should be provided? Yes, those are these programs are operated by the USDA, and they're very similar in this sense. They're similar to school lunches and school lunch programs in that school lunches are typically a 5-component meal. Those components, again, typically are milk, meat or meat alternate, fruit, vegetable, and grain. USDA has pretty robust rules on what fits into each of those categories. If you are new to summer food service program, that is one of the things that you will work with the state about. The state will have like all kinds of handbooks for you, and you can find this online as well. If you Google health.missouri.gov and SFSP, there's a litany of documents that show you exactly what a meal and a snack is. Probably go into the reimbursement rate. What is a component? How many components are in a meal? How many components are in a snack? And what qualifies as, for example, as a grain, what qualifies as a milk. You may, for example, there was an action in Congress. I don't know if the bill passed. I think it did. Or an executive order to allow whole milk in USDA meals. There's robust literature about this. That is provided by, in this case, the state agency, Department of Health and Senior Services, and ultimately the federal agency, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. There are links to some of those agencies in the grant application, and also in the funding opportunity announcement, which you can find at mofac.org under summer meals. Under No Kid Hungry and Summer Meals, we have the funding opportunity document, which actually we'll probably post a link to that before the end of this webinar. And that's a good question, Lamar. Okay. Again, we want to spur long-term sustainable points of service for free meals for kids in needy areas of Missouri. That is our mission. So if you have something on your purchase list that's not really likely to have an effect next summer, that's going to be a ding. That's not going to be competitive with the other applications. And again, summer tends to be competitive. Can't buy food. This again, we realize that people working in this space don't often have time to fill out a large grant application. I know that the deadline is a little intimidating. We have a little more than a week right now, but we're not asking anyone to write a novel. You really just asked to think about what you would purchase for the $5,000 in order to have a sustainable summer meal site, and who you are, and if you're an existing site, or sponsor, what is your plan for increasing participation? because we don't, we're more interested in spurring an increase in participation than we are in just maintaining the status quo. It's one of the reasons why we want people to serve in July and August. That's one of the reasons why we tend to look more favorably on folks that haven't been funded a lot of times by us so far. Doesn't mean, again, that doesn't mean that we won't fund you if you've been funded before, but in our little way, we are trying to incentivize more free meals for needy kids in Missouri. All right, this is important. So if and when you win the grant, the most important thing, our reporting requirements are actually, compared to a lot of grants, pretty easy. We do have one form that we ask you to fill out asking for general feedback about the application itself and how easy or hard this program was to work with. But the more important line item on this slide is the top one, because this is ultimately federal money, public federal money. We are very keen on making sure that everybody purchased what they said they were going to purchase. Say that again. We are very keen on making sure people purchased what they said they were going to purchase. So if you apply for a grant and get one, and maybe you're a pending sponsor or a pending site, and it gets to be like, say, June or something, and you have not been able to get set up, you have not been able to, maybe you haven't worked things out with the state of Missouri, you need to let us know right away. If you, and again, if you need to change your purchase, maybe the thing that you wanted to buy isn't available, you want to buy something else, you need to let us know. There is a report deadline for those receipts and a complete list of purchases, and you have to meet that deadline. You'll work with MoFact on getting those receipts done on time. That if there's one area of the project that has had the most issue, it's this one. It's hopefully we're not asking for a lot in reporting. But we do need receipts, and you need proof of purchase, and we need you to buy what you said you were going to buy, or if not, you need to communicate with us. So when people go off the rails, that we have problems. Any questions about that? Okay. This is an example of some of the things that we've done. This is Schuyler County School District in Queen City, and some of their storage crates for, I think this was after school meals, but they bring these crates of food items and milk to the different clubs. It's an active campus. Kids are, interacting and, doing lots of things that help with education, that help with social and economic development, and they're not hungry when they're doing it. And so that is what really brings the community together. And this is a success story. We're very happy with these sites. This is the application link. I will paste it again in the chat. There it is. I apply here. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing in this moment so I can paste some more URLs. Okay. I do want to paste a link to our the document that actually describes the grant in detail. So just give me a moment to grab that. And are there any other questions while I'm doing that? So, okay. So here's the splash page on mofact.org. And here's the direct link to what I call the FOA, or the funding opportunity announcement. And that has a full description of everything that I hope everything you need to know about the program, including our contact information, which is where you would go for questions. Okay. All right, well, I'm seeing no further questions. We are recording this webinar. I have all your email addresses if you registered. So I will send I will upload that to YouTube, and I will send that around along with, again, the application link and the link to the FOA. And I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you considering applying for this grant. And hopefully we're doing some good with this project. And again, we appreciate you and everything you do. That I will close the webinar. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for your time.